The Bastards of Oblivion. Episode 12. The Clones of Baby Hitler. Part 10. Groundhog Day. I am floating around the hospital out of my body. My body is lying on a bed just down the hall. There is a guard posted at the door. I suddenly wonder if my body dies, what will happen to me?
The airman is suffering hysteresis.
I could hear one of the nurses say. I float back to my room and I lay down on my body just to be safe. I try to wake up. I have done this many times before, but never like this. I hear a tiny pop inside my head and I'm back in my body. I'm staring at the ceiling and I can feel the cathodes on my head and the other crap they have hooked up to me. I cannot move.
The airman is suffering hysteresis.
I could hear one of the nurses say, I am cataleptic. This sucks. I try to get up. I cannot get out of my body and I cannot force myself to wake up. I do eventually feel myself coming around after a little while, and I sit up in the bed. This scene repeatedly plays over so many times that I can't count them.
The airman is suffering hysteresis.
I hear one of the nurses say, it just went on and on.
The airman is suffering hysteresis.
Eventually the deja vu wore off and I began to wonder how to fix it. I was once again catatonic, only this time it was
The
different.
airman is suffering hysteresis.
There was a vignette of light over me and the dark shadows of people standing over me. I could feel my physical body moving, but I was not doing it. I felt like a puppet. The nurses were exercising my arms and legs.
God damn it, Trinity, snap out of
The
it.
captain yelled. I sat up in the bed. There were no machines hooked up to me. I was in a dentist chair. It smelled like Listerine. I was confused. I was getting used to being confused, and this alarmed me. I wanted to go home. Then I suddenly realized that I didn't know what that meant.
Hey, you.
The captain said.
Is there anybody in there?
I don't feel good.
I lied. I was high as fuck. My mouth and tongue and lips were all numb.
Oh, that's just a phenobarbital wearing out. You'll be fine. How's the root canal?
What?
And I sat up, rubbing my face. I was uncomfortably numb. My hands felt just like two balloons.
You guys gave me a root canal?
I said. I could feel drool dripping on my tingling chin. I felt just like Sylvester Putty-Tat.
What? You're in a hysteresis time slip. Did you just want me to let you rebel for all eternity? What the fuck?
He looked surprised.
I want out.
I said.
Phenobarbital. Truth serum. Fuck you. I quit.
Bullshit.
He said.
After all we've been through, besides, the only other way out of the hysteresis eternal deja vu is death, and those machines cost a lot of money, so we used truth serum and we gave you a root canal.
I can't do this anymore.
I was angry and wanted to break something.
You're the best we got.
He said. I sat up in the dentist chair.
You gave me a fucking root canal.
I said.
I want a raise and a vacation.
Not just any old root canal, this one is cool, dude. It's in your upper left molar. Here, look at the x-ray.
He handed me the plastic black see-through x-ray pictures. I looked closely.
A radio?
I yelled.
Oh, fuck all.
Hey, keep your voice down.
The captain looked around nervously as if someone else was in the room.
Not just a radio.
He whispered. He looked around the room again like sneaky guys do in the movies.
Artificial intelligence.
What?
I screamed, and a guard opened the door.
Is everything all right in here, sir?
Yes, Airman, everything is fine. Now please close the door and keep at the
The
ready.
captain sounded as if he was talking to a 6-year-old.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The guard said, and he shut the door as he gave me the hairy eyeball. I wanted to beat the shit out of both of them. I knew I could do it, and so did they.
You know what? You can go fuck yourself. And I want the damn Borg tooth removed.
And I stood up and walked over to the door.
Well, that's just a rock and roll talking. We'll have you ready for duty in no time.
The door was locked. I shook it as hard as I could.
Well, I guess you can't fight the powers that be.
I seriously thought about taking the chair and smashing the window and making an escape, but that was stupid. So I sat down in the chair instead.
Just the rock and roll talking, huh?
I asked. I held my head in my hands with my elbows on my
I'm
knees.
going crazy.
I said.
You guys are making me crazy.
Listen, son, you are not crazy.
The captain told me.
You have psycho-spiritual shell shock. We also think you've contracted the rocking pneumonia because you don't seem to like disco music.
He was as serious as he ever was.
The rock, mo.
This is just stupid,
That's just stupid.
I said.
Do you love the nightlife? Do you love to boogie?
He asked.
What's love got to do with it?
I asked.
Do you think I'm sexy?
He asked as serious as can be.
What the hell?
I yelled and stood up, knocking the chair over.
Definitely a rocker.
He said as he checked off a little box on a piece of paper on a clipboard on the wall.
Sit down, Airman.
I sat down.
A rocker.
I repeated.
You're a rocker.
Yes.
He chuckled.
Otherwise, the diagnosis would have been
He cleared his throat.
The boogie woogie flu.
We stared at each other.
The boogie woogie flu. Is there a cure?
I asked.
The hair of the dog.
The captain replied.
What?
I asked.
The hair of the dog that bit you. You need to go to the face the dumbass who created this.
The captain placed his hand on my shoulder.
The earth is depending on you.
Now you're messing with a son of a bitch.
I said, and I stood up to leave again, but I remembered the door was locked, so I sat back down.
What are you, Catholic?
He asked.
Stay still.
He pushed a folder towards me that was sitting on the table, and I sat back down.
It's all here in black and white. Read it for yourself. You're on leave but restricted to base for the duration.
He smiled.
Like a timeout? How long is that?
I asked.
As long as it takes. Now I suggest you go home and get some rest. I have another driver. We'll drop you off on the way home.
And we went outside and approached the Jeep.
Till I'm ready?
I laughed.
Time is on my side. Yes, it is.
He sang, and he jumps ahead of me and opens the front passenger door and says,
Oh, allow me.
This is definitely out of form, and I feel awkward. I look around to see if anyone is watching. I don't know why I care, but I do.
Just get in.
He says.
That's the rock and roll. You'll get used to it, I hope.
I thought you were gonna get me all fixed up.
I slobbered and drooled as my face was still numb.
Get in the Jeep, Airman.
He said very sternly and handed me a napkin.
You're slobbering.
I got in, and it smelled like maple syrup and coffee.
Howdy.
The driver smiled at me. It was the gal who dropped me off earlier. I felt like I'd known her all my life, but this was only the second time I am aware that we had ever met.
They say this job will drive you insane.
I winked at her and smiled.
Too late for that, space cowboy.
She giggled.
Private, no fraternizing on duty.
The captain said,
Sorry, sir, where to?
I don't know. What do you feel like doing?
and we sat there in silence for a few seconds.
It's okay, kids. At ease.
He said.
You're off duty. Feel free to fraternize.
This was new. I had never heard the captain be civilian before.
I have tickets to Fuzzy Fuzzburn tonight, but no one to go with.
He said with a laugh. The driver looked in the rearview mirror. My heart jumped. The captain laughed.
Not my generation. You kids have a good
And
time.
he tossed the tickets in the front seat. Suddenly remembered that Petty Officer Stevens had tickets.
Captain,
Yes, Airman?
how is Petty Ops?
I asked, and the captain let out a heavy sigh.
Private, take me home.
I let the subject drop. She and I looked at each other from the corners of our eyes. Nobody said a word all the way to the captain's house. He looked at some notes, and she stared ahead while I looked out the window. One of them farted, but I didn't say anything. I was hoping it was the captain. I wished the windows rolled down instead of unzipped. We eventually got to the captain's house, and we all opened our doors and got out quickly, but nobody said a word.
Good night, sir.
Good night, sir.
And he looked at us. He smiled and sort of bounced or something on his ankles like a little kid with a new toy. He took a long, deep breath of air.
Perfect. Good night.
He turned in an about face and marched smartly to the front stairs. We watched without saying a word. He did another about face and said,
No, don't diddle-daddle, kids. We have souls to save.
and made a gesture with his hands like he was scattering chickens or something.
Get along now.
And he turned and walked up the stairs and went inside.
What? Am I a cobbler now?
I muttered. The driver giggled. I wonder if she really got that. We both got back in the Jeep.
Trinity.
She said.
What sort of name is that?
It's my name.
That's a stupid name.
Fuck off.
I said, and she punched my arm.
You watch your tongue when you're with me, sailor.
And she started the Jeep. I was silent for a second.
Fuzzy?
Woo! Fuzzy rock and roll!
She hollered really loud and stepped on the gas a little too hard.
Sheesh, lady, slow down.
She slowed a bit.
What's your name?
She was quiet.
Well,
She muttered something.
what? What?
She
Matilda.
said very loud, and then she sort of frowned and leaned forward and started driving faster. My barracks was right there, so...
You can let me out right here.
And she stopped the Jeep.
What about Fuzzy?
She asked. My face was still numb, and she made me nervous.
Well, my face hurts. I think I'm gonna lie down.
I said. The reality is that I was recalling the dream or whatever that just happened, and I really wanted to be alone and decompress, although she looked pretty hot.
No, I'll take a rain check.
I said, and she looked really sad. I could smell the maple syrup over the coffee. Her blue eyes were big and sexy. I felt a chub in my pants. I felt dirty. I wanted to rock, but I didn't know what that meant. She put a piece of bubble gum in her mouth, and it was strangely compelling. She smacked it around and popped it between her teeth. The smell of Tutti Frutti hit me, and I felt like a dog. I felt a spark jump in my chest.
How much time we
I'll
got?
be back in less than an hour.
She said, and she was gone before I could respond. She showed up in a 1957 Ford Thunderbird. It was white with red trim.
It's my daddy.
She smiled.
It's really fast. Want to drive it?
My spidery sense tingled a bit. I opened the passenger side door. It smelled like maple syrup and old leather. I sneezed.
That's okay. I trust you. It is very cool. Maybe some other time. Besides, I had a few beers while getting ready.
She glared at me. I could tell she knew I was lying, and I just didn't want to risk being the one to destroy this classic piece of machinery.
You look really nice.
I jumped inside.
Good save.
She rolled her eyes and turned on the radio. The numbness from the root canal was wearing off and my face hurt a bit. The radio was clear but went in and out of static. It was weird because it went in and out of static only in my head like an echo. With my physical ears it was normal and I could tell the new difference. I was hearing 2 radios at a time. It was the damned radio they put in my root canal.
How's your tooth?
She said as she started the car with a roar. I found the coincidence of her question discomforting.
Turn the radio off, please.
I said. She turned the radio off.
I have one too.
She turned and smiled at me. I had not seen her lips move when she said it.
It's pretty cool, actually.
I had heard her thoughts. I looked at her. She cleaned up really nice, and I could tell she put a lot of effort into it. She was all metaled up, as we used to say back in the day. Her hair was big and fluffy, but not stupid. It was 1981. She looked totally different. She took a breath. She was a fast machine, and she kept her motor clean.
You like what you see?
She said, and I felt a chub in my pants. She laughed.
Yeah, baby, this is gonna be fun.
She slammed the car in gear, and we took off like a bat out of hell.
Matilda.
What?
That's
Don't you dare.
a stupid name.
I said, and she punched me in the arm again, and it hurt. She was the best damned woman I'd ever seen. Anyway, we arrived at her friend's house. Her friend lived only a few blocks away from the Coliseum where Fuzzy is playing. She parks in the driveway, and we walk about 6 blocks and arrive at the gate. I look at my watch. It is 17:49. That's like 10 minutes to 6 or something. I laugh at the stupid military time and I tell her we should get something to eat. Loud music is playing and I'm starting to get the vibe. I was digging it, man. She was shaking, snapping her fingers. She was moving round and round. That girl was shaking. We grooved our way to a beer stand that had pretzels. Standing in line, she leaned into me. I could smell her hair. I felt just like Joe Biden. I wondered if this was appropriate, and she stopped and turned around.
You're stuck with me.
She said, and she kissed me on the lips. I don't even know her. Trinity and Matilda. What would we call our kids? I laughed.
Beauregard and Lucretia.
She said. I could hear her laughing in my head, but she was straight-faced as if she hadn't heard or said a thing. I thought of the Addams family. She turned around and snapped her fingers twice.
Hey kids, have a good time. Enjoy the show, okay?
The vendor called. She turned around and ordered 2 pretzels, a bratwurst, and 2 beers, which is exactly what I would have ordered. I was beginning to like this girl. We had lawn tickets, and we found a place that wasn't so bad. The smell of marijuana drifted through the air. We sat down on the grass, and she says,
How old do you think you are, Trinity?
The music was loud, but I could hear her very well.
So you have a radio too?
I thought at her,
Yes, have a bite of bratwurst.
and she opened a mustard packet and squirted it on the sausage. I took a bite, and it was hot, so I cooled it down with beer. She laughed. I laughed. She laughed again, and I felt stupid. She took a slow bite of the bratwurst and looked straight at me. I felt nervous. I noticed she had a purple streak of color in her hair. I tried to ignore my urges, but she leaned over and squeezed my inner thigh.
You and me, Space Cowboy, we're connected.
I smelled roses, and it sort of felt like death just touched me. She looked at me very sadly. I could feel her concern. I knew that she was thinking and feeling, and she knew what I was thinking and feeling. She was thankful because I was brave and handsome and famous in secret circles. Besides, she was just doing her job, and she felt stuck, so what the hell? Besides, nobody else understands her, and maybe I will, so she actually asked for the assignment. She has had a secret crush on me before she met me based on my reputation alone. I looked at her blue eyes. One of them had a brown speck in it. She genuinely wanted me to love her, and I didn't know if I could, and she knows this. She reached over and grabbed my hand. I thought of Marilyn.
If you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with.
She said, and she leaned over and kissed my left cheek. I could feel the lipstick, and she giggled and wiped it away.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The crowd went wild. The smell of marijuana grew stronger. Everybody stood up, so I grabbed her hand, and we stood up. I looked at Matilda, and she smiled at me.
Fuzzy Fuzzbird!
The crowd chanted.
Fuzzy,
She was having a lot of fun.
Fuzzy,
My face hurt. Someone
Fuzzy.
passed me a joint. This could get me thrown out of the Navy. I think about it. I could throw away a career killing baby Hitler clones without acknowledgement on the pay of an E3, or I can...
Fuck it.
I said, and I hit it. After everything I think I have experienced, I'm beginning to wonder about it. I decide what is the worst that could possibly happen. She made a face and stuck her tongue out. It was long and pointed like a snake.
Right?
I heard her think, and she hit the joint and we passed it on. The energy is high in the Coliseum. The roof is open and the lights go off and we can see the stars. There is a falling star and the crowd goes wild. There are fireworks and loud heavy guitar power chords jar the already deafening roar of the crowd. A gal next to me climbs on her boyfriend's shoulder and takes off her shirt. I am mesmerized. I can feel Matilda's eyes burning into the back of my neck and I turn around. She grabs my hand and takes me to a corner where no one is paying attention. Everyone has pushed as close to the front as they could. She pulls me down to the warm, soft ground laughing and she don't know why. I see a dog and a butterfly.